So I thought I'd tell you guys a little story about almost losing my life on an electric skateboard, a Meepo Mini 2. I was so every day I take the same ride around my neighborhood. It's a uh, it's a loop in Scottsdale, Arizona. Same place. It's routine to me. And I take this electric skateboard I've had for a while, and it's a blast. It's super fun. So I take this ride, and 2 nights ago I take this ride, and every it's an everyday ride, and I'm going, and I'm heading down this hill, um, listening to my music, and I hit a crack in the road. And it's nothing new to me. I've hit plenty of cracks, plenty of times. And I hit this crack, and all of a sudden it was like just sent me into the gnarliest speed wobbles ever. And this I've been on the sport a long time. I've been hitting cracks, and the sport's a tank. I've never gotten close to getting speed wobbles. Um, and all of a sudden I just got the gnarliest speed wobbles. And right when it happened, I knew I was going down. I mean, there was no stopping this. But I remember the last thing I thought was, "Don't hit your head." Don't hit your head. Don't hit your head. And next thing I know, I'm awake. My eyes are open, and there's a guy sitting over me, and I didn't feel anything. I had no feeling, but my eyes were open, and I was awake. And he's talking to me. He's asking me questions. He's asking me if I'm okay. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm okay. Are you okay? Who are you? I'm fine. And I didn't really know where I was, but I wasn't, as weird as this sounds, I wasn't confused. So anyways, this guy's asking me if I'm okay, and I can't see well at all. My vision was probably a 2 out of 10. I could see the world, but I couldn't see faces. Like, I couldn't see the guy's face. I just saw there was a man. And then my hearing started to come back. I heard a lady yelling. She was yelling about how she needed a phone. She needed to call the ambulance. She was screaming, "I need a phone, I need a phone." And I remember saying, "No ambulance, no ambulance. I'm okay, no ambulance." And the guy's telling me he's a doctor. "Look, I'm a doctor. You need an ambulance. I'm a doctor. You're gonna be okay." And so he's talking to me. As a little time passes, I knew everything. I knew my name. I knew where I was. I knew what I was doing. I knew my dad's name. I knew phone numbers. I knew all this stuff. I wasn't. It came back to me really quick. In a matter of minutes. Um, so the guy calls my dad, and my dad's not far, and unfortunately he wasn't sober, but luckily he had a friend with him who gave him a ride. So my dad shows up, and he said it looked like I didn't know who he was, even though I did. I remember him getting there, and I remember talking to him, but he said it didn't seem like I really knew he was there. Um, so anyways, the ambulance shows up, and and turns out I was unconscious for over a minute. This guy just happened to be driving by and found me lying on the road, fucking, unconscious, just laying there. Um, so the ambulance shows up, and they do their thing. They start asking me questions, and I was actually able to walk to the ambulance. I didn't have to get put on a stretcher or anything. I got up and walked. I insisted that I could, and surprisingly, the guy let me. So I get in the ambulance, and they start sticking IVs in me and doing all these tests, blood pressure, checking my all that good stuff, pricking my finger, and the closest hospital with a trauma center was about a 30-minute ride from where I fell. So 30-minute drive in the ambulance. So 30 minutes goes by, and I'm kind of joking with the guy. I had a good sense of humor. I'm joking with the ambulance guy, trying to keep it light. I didn't understand the gravity of the situation quite yet. I just thought this was kind of a big overreaction. I'd never been hurt like this before. So I show up to the hospital, and there's about 30 people in this room, and they're all ready to go. I mean, they got, boom, they just storm me. Everybody's doing something on me. So they cut all my clothes off me. I was wearing Lululemon pants. Those are done for. I had a Billabong windbreaker on. That's done for, and an O'Neill long sleeve, which is also gone. Um, so they cut all my stuff off me, and they they do what they need to do. They get me straight into a CT scan because obviously the biggest concern is my head. So they get me straight into a CT scan. I had a neck brace on, so they did a CT scan on my spine too. They wanted to make sure I didn't have any vertebrae messed up. So I was wearing that neck brace for about an hour and a half. It was pretty obnoxious. But so about 30 minutes goes by and I'm waiting, and this neuro doctor comes in. And I can tell it's bad news right when she walks in. I'm in one of those big emergency rooms. Not a little room, not a waiting room, like a big room. And she walks in, and I can tell it's bad news. And she says, "Hey, Garrett," and I'm like, "Hey," and she goes, and I'm filled with adrenaline. My whole body's shaking. She says, "You have a brain bleed. You have a bleed in your brain. It's and it's about 3 millimeters." And she starts explaining it to me. But I'm just at this point, I don't even know if I was I don't even know if I was comprehending what she was saying to me. I was so, this is the gnarliest news I had ever gotten. Um, so she tells me I have a brain bleed, and she tells me I'm going to be transferred to the ICU. Um, and that there's going to be a team of people monitoring me all night and coming in every hour asking me questions, making sure I'm not losing any function in my body, anything like that, or else that would tell them the bleed is getting worse, most likely. So it took me a while to get transferred. They do the rest of their stuff. They clean up all these wounds. I'm covered in wounds. I got wounds on my butt, my knee, all that stuff. So they clean me up. I finally get the results back. My neck's good. My back's good. They take the neck brace off me, and then they transfer me to the ICU. And luckily, my girlfriend showed up and kept me company through the night and sat next to me all night. And the guy was coming in and asked me questions. I had to remember 3 words. Light, tight, and dynamite were the words. And he would come in and ask me, "Hey, what are the words?" And yeah, the gravity of the situation came apparent when I got transferred to the ICU. Because an ICU in a hospital is nobody's having a good day in there. I mean, honestly, I was in the best situation there. Most of the people were saying goodbye to somebody. So, but then again, you think to yourself, well, I'm in here too. I must be. It must be pretty serious for me if I'm in here too. Um. So, yep, spent the night in the ICU. Got another CT scan at 5 a.m. and my brain bleed had stopped, and I was good to go. They let me go later that day, so I wasn't even there 24 hours. But a couple of things I just want to talk about are, you know, if I didn't get up off that road, if I would have just died after I hit my head, the last thing I remember was riding my skateboard, listening to music, and looking at the sunset. I don't remember going down. I don't remember thinking to myself, I'm gonna die. I don't remember any of that. All I remember was riding my skateboard. Oop, I got speed wobbles. Don't hit your head. That's all I remember. And it's almost kind of comforting to me. If I did die, I would have never known it. There was no fear of death. I would have never, there was no traumatic, and I know people that have died in car accidents and stuff like that. And obviously this depends on the death and how quick it was. Obviously I was knocked unconscious, but it almost brings, as bad as this sounds, it kind of brings me comfort knowing that, some people they probably didn't even know, they probably didn't, the last thing they probably remember is just driving their car or riding their motorcycle or however they may have died. They don't know. And I didn't know. Um, the other thing I want to talk about is the board. So when I hit that crack, it snapped my truck and the board. So it wasn't really my fault. I mean, it was my fault I didn't throw a helmet on my head, but it wasn't my fault that I fell. Um, the board broke. You know, this is a $600 skateboard. It's kind of meant to go 30 miles an hour, but apparently not, because it broke and almost cost me my life. I mean, and I'm gonna show it right now. It was a 3/4 inch piece of metal on that truck, you know, and it snapped clean off. And when I looked at my skateboard when I was getting up off the ground, my truck was fucking turned 90 degrees to the left. I mean, there was no stopping this. I could have been Tony Hawk, and I was falling off that skateboard. Um, so it's just something to think about if you're gonna buy one of these boards, especially a Meepo Mini 2. I would think about it. Maybe go with something a little more expensive, a little higher quality, cause this. I mean, it's a serious. I mean, this is something that you know, you want it to be safe. There's no good falls off a skateboard going that fast. Um, so yeah, that's my story, and if you guys have any questions for me about what it was like to, you know, any obviously you can see I got some good I'm missing a big piece of my eyebrow. They're telling me I'm not gonna get it back. Pretty good. And then I'm this knuckle is completely gone. This hand's not too bad, and then my knee's pretty bad. My my knee and my butt's pretty bad. And then obviously I lost the Lululemon pants, which is no good. But yeah. If you guys have any questions for me as far as what a brain injury feels like, what it feels like to go unconscious, you know, there was no light for me. There was no tunnel for me. There was no, you know, at least for me, there was no magical experience. It was 1 second I was there, the next I wasn't. Kind of a scary thought. Kind of makes me sick to my stomach to think about, you know. And maybe it's because I didn't die, or maybe, you know, the best way I can explain it is it was like before I was born. That's what it felt like. Before I was born, you know, kind of a scary. If you think about it, it's scary because you really, I mean, life is so delicate. You really are just, you know, there's no one helping you. There's no one helping you. So